What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Nobody Safe podcast. I'm your host, Bryce. Jason is not here with me today. I couldn't let him in here. We're talking Texas football today. He literally wanted to do the Texas football preview. I didn't realize it. And then he tells me, hey, do you want to do Oklahoma State? Because I'm going to do Texas. I was like, nah, it's not fair. You can't do Texas. I probably shouldn't let him do Oklahoma State, too, because this dude's a diehard Sooner fan. He probably would have gave him no wins, and it would have just been way swayed in the wrong direction, and we don't do that. We're not biased here. Well, he is, but I'm not biased here. So, moving on. Let's talk some Texas football. So, as we all know, Texas has a ton of talent this year, as they always do. The question is, will they perform? Will it translate to wins and losses? We'll find that out at the end. I'll tell you about what I think the over-under will be. First off, like, comment, subscribe. If you like this content, definitely ring the bell so you can be first to hear all this talk and more. We talk fantasy football, we talk college football, Jason gives picks, so all that good stuff. First off, let's talk about the running back position. It doesn't need to be talked about much because they have Bijan Robinson, and I think it's safe to say that this guy is the best running back in all of college football, so just mark that one in. They're good at running back. At receiver, they got Xavier Worthy. He's a small guy. He's over 6 foot, but he only weighs about 165 pounds soaking wet. So he's not big, but he plays pretty big. He's a good receiver, but on the small side. But he returns the most yards they had last year. So they keep him. It's a big keep for them. They also have Jordan Whittington. He's a good receiver. He's also on the small side. He's really good at making people miss. He has some big legs, it looks like to me, where he breaks a lot of tackles. So that's a good returning receiver. But one thing they're missing is that big, tall guy to bring in those 50-50 balls in the red zone. They went out and got him in the transfer portal. His name's Isaiah Nayer. He comes out of Wyoming. I watched a lot of film on him. This guy looks incredible. I'm really excited about him, and I think that he could be, one of the better receivers in the entire country when all this thing is said and done. He's going to get a lot of touchdown opportunities in this offense, and he's already been named a starter on that depth chart. Another guy who was named a starter on that depth chart is Quinn Ewers. As of yesterday, he was named the starter for Texas, which I don't think that's a big surprise as highly as this guy was recruited. The weird thing was, he committed to Texas, went to Ohio State, and then he came back to Texas, which was just weird to me. I guess Texas will take anybody. So the question marks on that team, I think, are Quinn, or on the offense, we're only on the offensive side of the ball, I think are Quinn Ewers. He has no excuse. He has tiny, fast receivers. He has the best running back in the country. He also has a big body receiver that they brought in from Wyoming. And they got this tight end that if this guy shows up, he's one of the more highly recruited tight ends in the country. Whenever he came out was Jatavion Sanders. He looked really good in the orange and white game. And if he steps up and plays, they'll have 2 big body targets for Quinn Ewers. So they get 3 offensive linemen back. There's no excuses for Quinn Ewers this year. He needs to come in. He needs to play well for Texas to have a chance. And they've put everything around him that he needs in order to do that. So on the offensive side of the ball, they look like they could be electric, and we will see if that turns out, if that's the way that it is. So now let's go to the defensive side of the ball. This is where they've had most of their problems. So Texas couldn't tackle anyone last year, couldn't stop anyone, and I don't really understand why. They have the top recruits. They return their big stud linebacker, DeMarvion Overshown, who is just massive, and he's a presence. He's always around the football. We've been watching him for 3 years. He's a senior now, his 4th year. He should have a good grasp on the defense. He needs to be a force. He needs to take a step forward. Already go in the first round of the draft. He has a chance to get, even higher up in the draft if he has a good season this year. Another big one that they return is Deshaun Jameson. The reason I put Jameson on this list, not only is he a great corner, but he's also a top kick returner in the country, or punt returner. And so them having him get the field position battles won, as long as they can stop someone, as long as they can force more punts, and this guy should be a force in that area. They also get a guy named Jalen Ford back. Now, Jalen Ford wasn't a starter last year. Like, well, what do you mean they got him back? He was third on the team in tackles, and he only started 2 games. This is a guy they need in that offense to help Overshawn and to get that going, to tackle somebody. They got to be able to stop the run. They got to be able to play defense. And I think Jalen Ford is going to be a huge acquisition in that, to have him in the starting lineup to actually tackle somebody and maybe get the ball back in Quinn Ewers' hands. They have 5 seniors on defense and 5 juniors on defense and 1 sophomore. So they have plenty of experience on that side of the football. So like I said, there's no excuse over there either. You got to tackle somebody. The biggest loss is Josh Thompson. So Josh Thompson was a great corner, great enough that he actually plays in the National Football League now. He's the only player they lost to the National Football League other than a kicker, which they don't really play football. But he's the only skill player or guy who actually, hit people, who went to the NFL, and he plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They also lost a middle linebacker, their starting middle linebacker, Luke Brockermeyer, and Ray Thornton is a guy on the defensive line they lost. Those are the notable losses. But one big addition, probably the biggest addition to me, is a coach. And obviously they keep Steve Sarkisian, but they gain Gary Patterson. And if you bet on sports, if you've been betting on college football for the last any number of years, you recognize that name. Gary Patterson, you know that you can take TCU in some big games with some big spreads, and his team will show up to play on the defensive side of the ball. And they went out and they hired this guy because the defense was so bad as a special assistant. And I think if this guy gets that defense ready, he was 181-79 as a head coach. He's no joke. He probably should be the head coach for Texas and not the special assistant. But I think he could really help that team get where they want to be. And so that's the biggest addition for me. The things that I see that need to happen this year for Texas to be successful, they need to win the close games. They could have went 10-2 last year, but they lost so many close games that they had a losing record. It was crazy. They only really got blown out in 2 games. That's it. Oklahoma cannot be the only team on their schedule. They started the season 4-1. They play a close game in Oklahoma, which they were ready for, and they almost won the game. Had Caleb Williams not came in and shredded them in the second half, they would have won that game. But when they lost, it killed them so bad that they lost their next 5 games. Next 5 pretty close games. And it can't be like that. I would rather you lose to Oklahoma and win those 5 games. I know that's not acceptable for Texas fans, but you need to have some winning records. You need to take steps in the right direction. Make your kids feel like they are winners. And so Oklahoma cannot be the only one on that schedule. No excuses for Quinn Ewers as my number 3 point. I've already said it once. He has plenty of talent. This team has plenty of talent. This team has enough talent to win the national championship. They have enough talent to beat Alabama week 2. And I know some of y'all are trying to turn the podcast off now. They do have that much talent. Will it happen? It probably won't. They probably won't beat Alabama, and they probably won't show up to every game like they should. However, they should. And Quinn Ewers needs to be the person that steps up and needs to be that number 2 overall recruit to carry them. And there's no excuse for him. He has all the talent in the world around him, so he's got to be the guy. If they don't get it done, we can point the finger right there and say, there it is. Quinn Ewers didn't get it done on offense. Now, they got to tackle people on defense. We've already talked about that. And number 4 point leading right into that is the defense has to improve. Gary Patterson, hopefully he can get these guys ready. They start tackling, they start flying all over the ball, and they start making plays, and this team could be great. So now we got the 8.5, as Vegas says, is the odds. How many games will they win? Will they win more than 8.5 or less than 8.5? So we look at the schedule. They'll beat UL Monroe. They'll beat UT San Antonio. They should beat Texas Tech. They should beat West Virginia. They should beat Kansas State. They should beat TCU. And they should beat Kansas. That's 7 wins that they should get. Now, we all know how Texas plays. They lost to Kansas, I think, last year. So they don't always win those games that they should win. But I think they need, if they win those 7 games, then they only have to come up with 2 wins out of these teams. Alabama, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. They got to win 2 out of those 5. Theoretically, they should. Am I betting the over on Texas? I can't. And here's why. Because they always underachieve. They always have the best players, and they never get it done. So I feel like, they'll win some big games. They'll get us all excited. Heck, they might even beat Alabama. I doubt it. But they'll get us all excited, and they'll probably let us down again by losses to dumb teams like Kansas State, Kansas, and Texas Tech, West Virginia. So we can't really count on them. So I'm going to bet the under and feel pretty good about it at 8.5. Hey, nobody's safe. Like, comment, subscribe, and see you next time.